Shalom, this is Nazama Shalhamadabar Yasharal on my channel Nazama the Hebrew Mystic Healer. I like to show some love to my 3D Ken, the 12 tribes of Israel scattered to the four corners of this third dimensional earth plane of existence, especially those of us from the northern tribe, okay, because it is Dia de los Muertos, so hey. Anyway, much love and shalom to you. Also, I'd like to show some love to my cosmic kin, scattered to the 12 dimensions of this universal egg matrix, the primordial Nibiru dragons, the Anunnaki star seeds. Much love and shalom to you as well. And always, I'd like to show some love and some gratitude for those of you who are following my channel. If you're not yet subscribed, please do so now, and don't forget to hit the notification bell. Also, if you like this video, be sure to show me by giving it a like. It does help. So today, guys, I'm basically honoring my ancestors for this particular holy day, and I wanted to talk about high portals today. So no, this isn't going to be a video on the Day of the Dead. This isn't going to be a video on Halloween or Samhain or anything like that. I want to talk about high portals and why it's important for us to be mindful of high portals and how we can really use those to tune in on our spiritual path, not just to connect with our ancestors, but to connect to other spiritual dimensions as well, and also in order to release our intentions for each, depending on which portal it is, each new moon, each new season, each new year, and so on and so forth. So it's really important for us to be mindful of when these portals occur and why. So I had a Facebook friend of mine make a request that I talk about what's the whole deal with, what modern day people call Halloween, what was originally Samhain, which was a Proto-Celtic holiday, and then what later became All Hallows Eve, and then as we know it down to today for Halloween. And also it was originally the Day of the Dead, and then later became known as All Saints Day, after the Catholic incursion as well. So all of this is really celebrating the same thing, and that is this particular full moon lunar portal during the time of the year when everything is in that in-between state of death and rebirth. So it really represents the in-between point between, two seasons and two worlds. But it's not a thinning of the veil as people commonly misunderstand it to be. It's actually a portal. So all luminaries shine through portals. And when certain portals are open, then we can actually attune or align to that. And we can do that either to connect with the portals themselves, what's on the other side of the portals, or we can also release, as I said a little while ago, our intentions into those portals in order to manifest. So let's talk about right now what's going on with the full moon portal. And it's also important to understand when each portal is coming up, when each portal is happening, what kind of portal is it? What are the best activities or practices that we can do in order to amplify or intensify the effects of that particular high portal time? So for example, this would be a time for us to connect with our ancestors. Why? Because the portal is open to the other side. So this is where, for those of us who practice ancestral veneration, this is when we might do altars, we might, eat a supper with our ancestors, we might just sit around and talk with them for those of us who are clairaudient, or clairvoyant. We might do meditations or shamanic journeying in an attempt to reach out to them. And, or we might just, sit around with our family and we might talk about the good times if they're ancestors we knew. So these are just some ways that we can, connect with our ancestors. So that's the main reason that, these types of holidays exist during these high portal times. Another thing you can do is if you want to connect with other energy currents, like let's say you want to connect with the angelic realm, or you want to connect with the infernal realm, or you want to connect with like the higher, high celestial realms, or you want to connect with the primordial void. This is the time to do that. This is the time to connect to those particular spiritual realms. And how you would do that would really depend on your individual practice and, basically what you were trying to accomplish and whom you were really trying to connect to. Also, during these times of the year, it's a good time for shadow work. It's a good time to go inward. So even though it's a full moon, and as I tell my clients on Patreon, it's usually better to do shadow work during the dark moon phase. Even though it's a full moon, it's also a really good time to do shadow work because it is still during that time where those portals are open. So it's easier for us to journey. It's easier for us to connect, especially if we're doing ancestral trauma healing, ancestral shadow work. So this would be the time to do that. So that's another thing we can do. We can also, for those of us that believe in doing spiritual practices, such as, for example, manifestation. We can also do that now because the full moon portal in general is about manifesting. You throw on top of that the fact that it's a blue moon, and you throw on top of that it's a high portal moon during the time where we have access to other spiritual realms, and it's really just an all-around good time to release those intentions out for a fuller and faster manifestation. So here's some things you can do. Now, what are some other high portals? I'll just say portals in general. The moon itself goes through portals, each major phase. So it goes through portals. Really, the highest portals per month is really the dark phase, the crescent phase, and the full moon phase. But really, the 4 quarters of those lunar portals are all good for very specific purposes during those portal times. Then you have solar portals, which occur during, for example, the equinox. So there are quarterly solar portals as well. Then you have eclipse portals. Those are very intense. Always tune into eclipse portals. You also have the New Year portals. Now, this depends on what New Year you follow. I myself follow the Hebrew New Year, which begins in the spring. There might be some of you that might follow the more standard Gregorian New Year of the rest, or the Chinese New Year. I mean, there's different New Years. There's also Neo-Pagan New Years. I think a lot of the pagan New Years are actually during the spring, but there's other types of pagan New Years that take place during the fall. But either way, New Year is a good time to set intentions for the entire year. Moon portals, good times to set intentions for the month. Now, if it's a new moon, you're setting intention for what are you wanting to bring in new? What new beginnings? What are you bringing in, right? If it's the end of the lunar cycle on the waning moon, then you're going to want to think about what are you trying to get rid of? What are you trying to banish? What are you trying to strip away? Full moon is about bringing things to its full potential. So this is especially good for anything dealing with fertility, abundance, psychic abilities, although the moon deals with the unconscious mind and psychic abilities in general. So anytime that you're really dealing with the moon, you're dealing with the psychic abilities to some degree. Now, the quarter moons, you can pretty much do with whatever you want. It's basically like checkpoints of, okay, where am I at in my progress? This is when you really do like follow-up manifestation work, or follow-up banishing work, or follow-up like new beginnings work, where you're like, okay, well, where am I at this point in time? And you kind of push it along with that energy, whatever you're doing exactly. So seasonal portals are huge for releasing intentions that are going to take a season to really come to pass. Or for a project that may be seasonal is a good time to really focus on these as well. So that's basically the gist on some basic portals. Now, also, whenever you have different planes, you guys know I don't call them planets, different planes or wandering stars crossing paths with other luminaries, those are also portal times. You have to be, in tune to which planes of existence, or which of the wandering stars is the, and which of the stationary or fixed stars is the moon, where is she passing through, right? And same thing with the sun, where is he passing through? So these are all things to be mindful of, because the celestial heavens really open up portals for us if we know how to tune in. Now, this is exactly why in most societies and all the high portal times, they always get us all focused on, buying a bunch of stuff and going to this event and going to that event, getting plastered, getting high, going out and partying. Why? Because when we do all of that stuff, we release all of this energy up, but it's not directed, it's not conscious, and it's not for us, it's not for our ancestors. It's just this energy that we're expelling. And so high-level occultists will take that energy and they'll use it for themselves, and they know how to use these portals, guys. So that's why I'm talking about this. I felt like this was really important to talk about today. So let's go back to some of the high portal. I already talked about this one, which is, it's really a lunar and solar portal. I should correct myself, because really it is a type of equinox portal in between, fall and winter to a degree. It's that in-between point, but it's also a high portal because of it being, the full moon. So it's that going on at the same time. When you're dealing with a strictly Hebraic tradition, like when you're dealing with Torah, for example, we have high portal times during the equinox and lunar points as well that are just indicative to our culture specifically, and less to the rest of the world, like where we have Feast of Booths and we have Feast of Unleavened Bread. Those are both high portals for harvest. So we have, the Feast of Unleavened Bread during spring, right after the new year. And this usually happens between March and April on the Gregorian calendar. And then that same exact opposite time during fall, we have the final harvest where it's the Feast of Booths. Okay, just use that as an example. So within the Torah-centered Hebraic high portal days or high holy days, we don't really have one that deals with winter. We have traditional ones that came later, like Purim, and which was really more so that in-between time between winter and spring, which was more actually a historical or a commemorative holy day. It wasn't a high holy day. And then we have, Feast of Lights or Hanukkah, which is centered around winter, but it really had nothing to do with the winter equinox. It was totally different. It was more commemorative based on a national people's identity and what they're going through. But I digress. So more on portals is when you have like a winter portal, for example, in between winter and spring. This is a time, again, where you're going inward. So during fall and winter, it's a period, even nature itself, right? The Heavenly Father and Earthly Mother themselves force us to go in with the way the weather is outside. I mean, it's a little different in more modern day society, but it's still like that to a degree. So it forces us to want to go in more. Even here in Egypt, it's starting to get foggy and rainy, a little cold. So it forces us to go inward more. This is a time where we do shadow work. This is a time where we do inner healing. This is a time where we spend time in our home and our hearth with our family, okay? Now, when that transitions to the spring, now this is a time, we're going to be manifesting, we're going to be creative, we're going to be fertile, right? We're going to have all these new ideas. That's a time to manifest that. Summer and that solar portal, that's when things are coming to their full final fruition, okay? It's really similar to spring, only it's more of, I'm going to bring this up to its highest point before fall comes around, and then I begin to kind of purge out what no longer serves me and withdraw in again. So that has more to do with like the solar portals. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope it was enlightening for you. I hope it was informative. It's probably not what you expected. The reason I painted my face like this was more so for my ancestors, and I thought it would be cool to do a video while I had this on because of the topic. Because one of the topics we were addressing was the Day of the Dead and this general high portal time and what it's really for, historically speaking, and what it's really for from a, energetic perspective of portals. Now, again, you can always, before we go, again, you can always use portals to connect with your ancestors, your soul family, right? Or your star family, depending where you're from. Other dimensional beings, if you're somebody that works with patron and matrons, patron, matron epithets or aspects of the primordial mother and father, that's another way you can do that during that time as well. Releasing your intentions, manifesting, banishing, new beginnings. All of these things can occur during portal times. Just being sensitive to the lunar portal times for monthly manifestations and monthly intentions. The quarterly or the seasonal ones for seasonal projects and seasonal broad focus. The yearly one for the year, right? When the new year begins. How are we going to change for that year? Okay? And of course, before I go, I'm sorry, I'm really excited today. Today's been a really good day, guys. The lunar Sabbath ended this evening. It was a beautiful Sabbath, a beautiful Samhain. I just chilled with my husband, chilling, keeping the Sabbath. And now I get to, chill with my ancestors. And it's been a great couple of days. It's been really amazing. So I'm sorry if I'm going all over the place. I'm a little, jazzed up right now. So, but I want to talk about the equinox real quick before I forget. So equinoxes deal more, now when you look at what an eclipse does, it's taking on the energy of the sun and the moon together. This is very powerful for zeroing in on the conscious and the unconscious together manifesting. So the sun is masculine and represents the conscious mind and the more slower cycles, whereas the moon is feminine and represents the unconscious mind and the quicker cycles. So when we're dealing with eclipse energy, we are dealing with literally the eclipse of those two portals together. Very powerful for any kind of work where you're trying to balance, where you're trying to bring together different aspects of yourself into a focus. When you're trying to do any kind of soul fragment retrieval, when you're doing any kind of, healing, like trauma healing, amazing for eclipse times. And this is a very powerful time, guys, so don't be surprised if you deal with a lot of charged up emotions. It's kind of like the full moon on crack when it comes to that. So, definitely be mindful of that. Take it easy, be gentle with yourself. And if you are going to do any kind of portal activity, always remember to cleanse your space first. Unless you're outside, but you can still kind of want to cleanse the area. You want to actually set up spiritual boundaries and, energy shields so that you can protect yourself from other energies. Because, during these portal times, it's not all, positive things going on or high vibrational activity. There's a lot of astral parasites. There's a lot of sludge beings. There's a lot of earthbounds that may not necessarily have your highest good in mind. So it's just good to be extra protective, and not in a fearful kind of way, but just in a common sense, safe kind of way during high portal times, especially during this time of year. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a like. And I know I'm always promoting my Patreon, but it's awesome, guys. Check it out, especially if you're looking on how to do things that I'm talking about as far as specific techniques, specific tools, guided meditations, things of that nature. Definitely check it out. I'll have the link in the drop-down menu. If you guys want an akashic record reading and find out your origin, where you've incarnated, pre-universal if possible, also in the drop-down menu. Have a beautiful day, guys. And for those of you who celebrate, have a wonderful, happy Day of the Dead. Take care and shalom.